Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you and welcome to today's presentation, What's New with Verasys. We're really excited to be talking to you today about this exciting topic. Lots of cool new features and enhancements that are coming with the upcoming release of Verasys 4.0 next month. So we're really excited to have you join us, and we want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your undoubtedly busy days to join us and learn more about what's coming with Verasys. So real quickly, I'm just going to go over the agenda for today's discussion. It's pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to start by giving just a quick refresher of what Verasys is and some key system components that make up the Verasys system. Then the exciting stuff, we'll get into what's new at this upcoming release, Release 4.0, which will be available at the middle of next month, October 14th. We'll highlight some did you know, so some Verasys tips and tricks that maybe you weren't already aware of, some really cool features and capabilities to highlight and reiterate. And then Jacob's going to take us through an exciting live demo focusing a little bit on what's new and what's coming with that release at 4.0. And then we'll conclude with some reminders of all the great Verasys resources that are available to everyone to learn more about what Verasys is and the upcoming release. And then we'll leave about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for some live Q&A. If we don't get time to answer everyone's questions, we will absolutely be issuing a frequently asked questions document shortly after the live event to get any questions that we didn't have time to get to during the event after that. So with that, that's a good segue. The Q&A, even though it will be at the end of today's session, we encourage and invite you to submit your questions either via the question panel or the chat panel at any point throughout today's presentation. And as I said, as we have time, we'll make sure to get those addressed or answered at the end. Just a friendly reminder that today's session is being recorded. So a copy of the recording, as well as a copy of today's presentation, along with any questions we don't have time to answer, will be made available shortly after the live event. So if you have to drop off early or your colleagues weren't able to make it, a copy of the recording and the presentation will absolutely be made available. And before we get started, I just want to go ahead and quickly introduce today's presenters. So we have Randy Alvis, who is our Business Development Manager responsible for Verasys Mid-Market BAS Systems. Randy works closely with sales, product management, and engineering to better align Johnson Controls solutions to meet the needs of our customers, and has held various roles in contracting and distribution, working with multiple brands during his almost 4-decade career in the controls and HVAC industry. Jacob Sheehan is our Associate Product Manager responsible for the Verasys product line. Jacob works closely with engineering, sales, and support teams to deliver features that meet our customers' needs, and has been with Johnson Controls for 9 years and has held several roles within the product development cycle. And my name is Jane Walmsley. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager responsible for our building automation and control systems portfolio, and will be facilitating today's session. So with that, I will turn it over to Randy and Jacob to get us started.
Thank you. So it's Randy Alvis here. We're going to first just kind of start off what is Verasys. Verasys, again, configurable controls, just simple parameters, setting the configurations with intelligent default values, just really simple stuff. Plug and play. It truly is plug and play. From edge device up to the building level hub, all the way up to the cloud. Which we'll talk about later, the enterprise cloud. Lightweight BAS, we call it. It's easy to use BAS functions such as scheduling, alarm notifications, intelligent dashboards. Data is presented, logically in an organized way, no configuration needed, based on your system that you've installed. Once it sends up to the cloud, it automatically builds the dashboards. You don't have to do it. Multi-site access, so visibility into the building data across the customer's entire portfolio. Long-term data storage, so it's really just the ability to extend the trending. The Verasys controllers can do trending within themselves, but if you need long-term trending, then you'll need the Verasys Enterprise for that to do a couple, 2-3 years of enterprise or trending. So Verasys ecosystem, kind of start in the middle there. That's the Smart Building Hub. And now I'm going to start up in the top upper left. So the Verasys Smart Building Hub or Verasys system can do up to 100 devices, being part of smart equipment, our Verasys controllers, again, up to 100 devices. Starting up in the top left is our smart equipment. Anything with the smart equipment symbol is part of the Verasys ecosystem too. And all you need is a BACnet MSTP card, and you can talk to the Verasys system. So Verasys, again, only talks BACnet MSTP and up to 100 devices. So we're going to keep dropping around from the left, on the left-hand side around the bottom. The TEC thermostat, model thermostats. We kind of call them smart controllers too, because you can do a lot with those thermostats, from, just doing rooftops, with economizer, fan coils, heat pumps, 2-pipe, 4-pipe fan coils, all types of things. They can be wired, so they can be wired and sitting on the BACnet MSTP bus, or they can be wireless if you add our wireless zone coordinator, that ZFR. So you can be wired or wireless. Even our smart equipment, and I'll mention it later, but can also be wireless to the smart building hub. Going again from the left around, so we talk about multi-zone. It's really multi-zone being zoning or changeover bypass type system. So we can do zoning or VAV systems, so variable air volume systems, and it's the same rooftop controller that's used for zoning and VAV systems, and the coordinator is the same for both systems. We have bypass controllers that's available. So if you need a bypass controller, you may or may not need a bypass controller for zoning. We have it available, and you can get them mounted at the factory on the dampers of the size you need. Moving around to the bottom right a little bit, VAV controllers. We have a new VAV controller that handles all apps, applications, and then you can also get those wired and mounted at the factory too on our Johnson Controls branded VAV boxes. Constant volume map. I kind of mentioned about controlling our rooftops, controlling some heat pumps and rooftop units. Maybe they're too heat, too cool, but maybe you have a more complex, we'll call it, air handler or rooftop, or maybe you have 4 heat, 4 cool, or mod heat, mod cool, or maybe you need to do dehumidification or humidification, or fan speed control. We actually have a constant volume app that you can download from verasyscontrols.com and put it on a USB stick, plug it into this VAC 1000 or 3000, and one just has more I/O than the other, where you can download the app, and you would download the app, you boot it up, and you've got a constant volume app, and you configure it through your phone. There is no software to buy, no anything to load on your phone or anything. It's just all done through your smartphone. You'd Wi-Fi into the smart building hub. From there, you can get to the application, and you would select, do I have mod heat, mod cool, or is it staged heat, stage cool? So it's very simple. We have a lighting controller, so you can get it mounted in a panel if needed. It comes with handoff auto relays also. And then we have an IOM controller for doing like simple interlocks, maybe monitoring some temp, humidity, CO2 sensors. And we can actually do that wired or wireless with the IOM controller. And then we also bring in our energy meter. I can tell you, being in this industry for a long time, it's the simplest energy meter you will ever set up. So it's very simple. It's part of our plug-and-play Verasys system. Refrigeration controllers. Our PIN A525, where you can actually control a walk-in cooler, see the VAP, control the evaporator fan, condenser fan, the whole works. Also plays in our plug-and-play of controllers with Verasys. Verasys Enterprise. You don't need Verasys Enterprise, but you may need Enterprise, and it's really based on your system. If you had a multi-site, multi-location, whatever the building might be, whether it's a gas station or banks or whatever, and maybe you have hundreds of them, and you would actually like to see all 100 banks at the same time, then the Verasys Enterprise plays very well in that. So we have, again, intelligent dashboards. So you can see the conditions across the entire site or portfolio of the stores. Alarms, they're displayed including steps on how to resolve. So again, all this is just uploaded automatically. There's nothing to build. All the alarm stuff is already set up for you too. Bulk commanding. Maybe you need to send a schedule where you want, say you got 100 banks and you have 1,000 rooftops, and you want to send a schedule to all of them at the same time. You can do that. Or maybe a set point change. Make all 1,000 rooftops 70 degrees. You can do that with just one click. Very simple. API integration, so it's able to integrate systems together. Maybe you've got one of these banks that have their own type of energy dashboard that they need for reporting. We can actually do an API to API from the Verasys cloud to their energy monitoring maybe system that they have, and send that data to them over an API. Plug and play, again, no configuration time needed. You just play it in the start, and it just starts streaming the data right up. And then again, that long-term data storage. So we can do like 3 years of historical customer data is stored in the site.
Okay, so this is Jacob taking over. So good afternoon and good morning. So we're going to transition to talk about some of the new features that are available with the Verasys 4.0 release. So let me flip to the next slide here. So the biggest feature that we're adding as part of Verasys 4.0 is what we call the third-party controller integration feature. What this enables us to do is to talk to other people's devices, not just our own. So in the slide that Randy showed previously with the Verasys ecosystem, that used to be all we could talk to, because we use the equipment model, the smart equipment ingredient brand, to talk to controllers. Now we've extended that. We're using the same exact system bus, and we're able to talk BACnet to third-party devices. The way the discovery works is pretty slick. It's automatic, meaning that you don't need to create any sort of database. You don't need to manually add in devices or add in device points. Once the third-party device is connected to the Smart Building Hub, the hub continuously sends out whois commands to discover the devices, and then sends commands to discover the whole device point list as well. Once it does that, it brings it into the devices page, so it looks just like any other Verasys compatible controller. And then once you click into it to see more details, it will render the BACnet discovered objects in specific views. So any sort of input objects, whether it be analog, binary, or multi-state inputs, will be in an inputs view. Value objects go in parameters, and then outputs would go in the outputs view. Then we also introduced the concept, we call it the profile editor. It allows you to make changes to those views as you see fit. So maybe a third-party device that you map in might have 300 points, for example, and maybe that's too many to show to an end user, a tenant. You have the ability to show and hide what points you want. You can rename them the way that you'd like, and then you can fit them into views as you'd like as well. Additionally, two things to add on to that feature. You can create that profile and then export it out. So if you have a specific competitive rooftop, for example, and you have it at a number of different sites, you can create the profile one time and then export it out. It comes in just a regular tar file, like a zip file, and then you can import it into any other smart building hub and have the exact same views, exact same extensions as well, which is a nice feature. In addition, you can add in any type of extensions like alarms, trends, or schedules. to the third-party BACnet objects. So what I've shown here is what we've done at one of our beta test sites. It's a specific competitive RTU that has an indoor air quality sensor. And then as you'll see on the right-hand side, we've configured it to have alarming. So anytime that the indoor air quality exceeds 700 parts per million, we send out an alarm notification email to the customer, and then they can see make changes in order to bring in more fresh air into the building. It's a nice feature with that. The second feature that we'd like to share with you as part of 4.0 is something we call zone group scheduling. So this specifically applies to our zoning systems, both the changeover bypass and the VAV that we talked about earlier. In previous versions of Verasys, anything that sat on the zone bus, which would be the zoning RTU, bypass damper, and then either VAVs or zone dampers, they were all assumed to act together. So they all had a single schedule. They all performed temporary occupancy at the same time. And the overwhelming feedback that we got is that's good for small spaces or with a small amount of zones, but it doesn't really help us that much when we have either a large number of VAV boxes or possibly different sized VAVs just for different applications. So what we've done in this release is have the ability to group zone controllers into up to 4 different groups that each can be assigned their own schedules that run independently. And then of course they would all share the same temporary occupancy. So if after hours somebody comes in the space, it will only occupy the few that are in the group. To illustrate this, here's a floor plan from one of our local sites here in Milwaukee. It's kind of a mixed use place. So there's a few concession stands, I guess I'll call them, kind of like restaurants. There's some shopping centers, retail stores, and then there's a few other additional restaurants in the back. And so what we did is we ended up splitting this into 3 different groups. So in the front part of the building, the entrance, we ended up giving it a schedule 11 to 8 because that matched the hours of those particular stores. Kind of towards the back is where most of the retail was. So there's an apothecary, 8 branches is a clothing store, and then a shoe store and a jewelry shop, all kind of had the same hours, around 9 to 5. And then in this kind of main back area here, there's a barber shop, another clothing store, and a popcorn stand that had slightly different hours. So with our new feature, we're able to split off these zones so that they kind of act independently, which is kind of a nice energy saver for the building overall. Another new feature that we're adding at Verasys 4.0 is what we call controller clone. What this does is it's a way to enable installers to more quickly configure the system and in a very consistent manner. So the way it works is you configure a single controller, whether it be a VAV controller, a TEC3000, smart equipment rooftop, whatever, and you're able to, through the clone feature, to copy the parameters from one device to the next, to the next, to the next. The way that we've done it, it's in an intelligent manner, meaning that we do ignore certain attributes that might not be useful to copy, such as your network information, like your MAC address, for example. And also in VAV systems, we also don't copy over a lot of the balancing parameters, as they could be very different from box to box to box. So the way it works, very simply, you select a source device, you choose your destination devices, and it copies one by one by one. And we'll show a demo of how it works a little bit later. Also new at Verasys 4.0 is an update to the TEC3000s. So this team has added a number of features, all strictly focused around ventilation. So the first one, they call it demand control ventilation. So on the color TECs, you've always had the ability to bring in a CO2 sensor, but there was never any logic behind it, so it was monitor only. With this new update, now there's a demand control ventilation sequence that works in tandem with the economizer output. And so if the CO2 exceeds a certain level, the fresh air damper will start to open up at a certain rate. Similarly, they've also added occupant control ventilation, which is a similar concept, but instead of needing a separate CO2 sensor, it just strictly uses occupancy to bump that damper open more than what it would be. And then they've added the third feature, which they've called epidemic response ventilation. So completely independent. You don't need a CO2 or occupancy sensor for it to work, but you can configure things like pre-occupancy purge, where it will look at the schedule object. It will find the first occupied period of the day, and then it will start the system 2 hours early. So open up the damper, run the fan, and bring in fresh air before people actually start to get in the building. And then tied to that, if there's no schedule associated with it, or if there's unoccupied for 2 days over the weekend, for example, there is a feature in there where every 24 hours it will try to run this purge sequence to make sure that there is fresh air in the space. A couple other things new at 4.0. One big one for us is the NS8000. So we've always been partially compatible with the NS8000 in the past, specifically around temperature and humidity. We've now added the capability to read CO2 off the same sensor as well. And this is true for all of the Verasys compatible controllers, whether it be smart equipment, whether it be a ZEC, which is our VAV controller, or whether it be a Verasys application controller. So now full compatibility no matter which sensor that you choose. And then lastly, just to touch on a few of the updates that we've done for the Verasys Enterprise. So like Randy mentioned earlier, we've really put a focus on supporting those third-party devices end-to-end. So it's pretty slick. You just connect the controllers to the network. You don't really even need to create a profile. It's optional. But as soon as it's connected to the Smart Building Hub and you have an enterprise account connected and enabled, it will start streaming that third-party data to the enterprise. No configuration needed. There are already specifically defined screens to define where the third-party information goes, and you're automatically getting your time series data right away. A few other things that we've done is numerous performance enhancements, mostly around getting handlings at scale. So we've been able to reduce screen load time significantly for this Verasys 4.0 release. Another big one to mention is the user auditing feature. So you have the ability as a customer admin to see who's logging into the system, when do they log in, when do they log out, and then what changes are they making specifically. It's a big ask from a lot of our customers to be able to have that type of visibility. And then lastly, we've revamped our scheduling feature to make it a better user experience and easier to make the same changes, but in much fewer button clicks, which is a nice enhancement.
So I'm gonna, this is Randy back again. I'm gonna talk about just this new feature of our 4.0 and the benefits of the new 4.0 release. So one is this 4.0 is free, the software update. So when we release this in October, if you buy a smart building hub, the new smart building hub, no changes to the hub or anything, it's just a software update. When you purchase the new hubs, they'll have this new 4.0 built right into it. If you have a existing smart building hub and it's the SBH200 series, so again, the SBH200, if you have that series and you need to update it to so you can pull in some third-party BACnet devices, maybe it's an existing building you already had a hub in and they've added some new rooftops or something. You can now bring those in through the BACnet integration. But you can go to verasyscontrols.com and download the 4.0 update and update your existing hub. So again, that's a free software update. The controller clone, again, just faster commissioning. You know, if you've got a project that's got 20 VAV boxes and they're all the same, you know, you can set up one and just clone the rest. Even if you had a new building that you're working on and it's all, there's 20 or 30 rooftops, and they're all the same brand, the same BACnet card. What a great way to do some fast commissioning and setup, because now you can set up one, clone it, and add the other 29 whatever rooftops right to the system. So really fast, nice feature. The other value is for adding to contractors would be just the ability to tie in all kinds of other equipment during your retrofit. So I talked about in the beginning about the Verasys and all the things that we can do with the Verasys system, but now this really broadens how much more we can do inside of a building, and being a small building or a mid-sized building. From third-party boilers and chillers, RTUs, heat pumps, VRFs, that's variable refrigerant flow systems, energy, water, and gas meters, third-party, maybe some of the new LED lighting systems that are based on BACnet, breaker panels, any of the, anybody's BACnet controllers that they may have configured, room pressure controls, like the Triatech brand. And then down below, we just kind of showed some of those things. And I just see this as a huge thing with small buildings, being able to remotely get into a small building or mid-sized building in a, very inexpensive way, putting in a smart building hub and being able to control, just not being able just to change the set point of, say, a rooftop, but be able to get alarms and notifications and all those things. So just some great benefits with the new 4.0. Also, some just kind of little did you know type things is things that we also kind of released throughout the year. These things are also posted on verasyscontrols.com, and we added some expanded applications to support our VAV and VVT, our zoning system. In the beginning, we could only do staged heating and cooling, but now we can do mod heat, mod cool, and mod heat staged cool, or mod cool and staged heating, and even heat pump control. This was requested from quite a few customers over the years, and now this is all available to you too. And then even with the VFD, it's highlighted over on the right. I'm just talking about some supported features. Again, you can see where we could do for cooling, mod heat, mod cool type stuff, supplemental heat economizer, fixed variable fan speed or variable fan speed. So now you can do the VFD and the changeover bypass configuration. You don't need a separate controller to do that. The other feature that was added of our controllers in the Verasys system is that our new VAV controller is the new ZEC 510. Some great things with this. One, it can be standalone. So what that means is if you had an existing VAV system in a building, maybe some of the VAV controllers are starting to go bad. The customer just wants you to replace a couple of them, and it also can help you, maybe get inside the door to this customer and start servicing their equipment, is that these controllers can be standalone. So you can put a couple of these Verasys ZEC 510s in the building. They can be standalone, it's independent of everything else that's going on anyways, most system VAVs. So now you can get into the building. They're compatible with all of our NS8000s. Supports all the supplemental heating, whether it's, staged heating or SCR controller, whatever it might be. You can use our map to connect to it, to set your box parameters, like your K values and all the rest of them, your min and maxes. Options to put in the zone and standby with occupancy sensing. It's compatible with our balance stat that we have available. And then the ports are differential pressure sensor, that, so there's no polarity, so it doesn't matter. And then the other big one is being able to be a factory mounted option. Our Verasys side loop controller. This is another new controller. In the beginning, I mentioned about, we had a constant volume map where you could go to verasyscontrols.com and download the configuration and put it on a USB stick, plug it in, and make it a constant volume controller. What we also came up with is what's called a Verasys side loop application. The side loop application, it's really pretty powerful and really slick. Can do a lot of different things. We on the right there kind of shows you some of the different loops that we can do, and from reset loops to PID loops, and analog to binary type integration type stuff. So you can customize your loops. You know, again, the software updates, you would download it to a VEC 1000. You know, it's configurable with any types, both analog and binary. And then it's the configuration is actually driven off a menu structure. Again, remember, there is no software to buy here with Verasys. So you do the setup through your phone, but maybe you've got a building with an exhaust fan and you want to be able to control the outside air dampers on the building, the exhaust fans, maybe some VFDs. You could do that. You could actually do a boiler reset. You could do a boiler. So you could do monitor, you know, look at the outside air temp, boiler water temp, and do a boiler reset control to enable the boiler. So it's very powerful, and it helps us with small buildings or mid-sized buildings to be able to do, we'll call it maybe some more complex type building control also. And then, you know, it's again, built-in configurable alarms and trends. They're all part of it too. It's all very simple. Wireless capabilities. So with the Verasys system in our zoning application, right now we can only be wireless to zone sensors. So whether it's zoning or VAV, it doesn't matter. You can be wireless from your stats to your VAV box controller. Our IOM controller, again, that's where we're monitoring maybe some exhaust fans or just maybe the customer wants to monitor some temperature and humidity or CO2 type inputs. You can also do that wirelessly. Our constant volume map, you can be wireless from the stat to the controller. And then our TECs, I mentioned earlier that you can be wireless from the TEC, but the TEC is a little different, not so much to the controllers. The TEC can be wireless, adding the zone coordinator above it, can be wireless from the TECs to the smart building hub if you add the zone coordinator. And then our smart equipment, if you add a zone coordinator on the BACnet MSTP bus, you can actually be wireless, adding the wireless flag, or we have a couple of different routers, but if you add what's called a wireless flag, you can be wireless from the smart equipment back to the smart building hub. So no communications run from the smart building hub to the equipment. And then we have to add another device, but you can actually be, it's a one-to-one wireless receiver. You can be wireless from the temperature sensor to the rooftop, so no wiring. And then the rooftop can be wireless to the smart building hub. So we also threw this in here because of this whole, we'll call it the pandemic type conditions, getting the building readiness. ASHRAE has already come out with some of their standards. We've been getting numerous requests for projects that they're already spec'd about being pandemic ready. And what's really kind of neat with this, with the small buildings, it really allows you know, the access to the smart building hub. Again, you're talking about a BAS system in a building that you can remotely connect to the smart building hub, you know, to get access if maybe you can't get out or get to the building. So that's one great feature at a low cost. And then increasing the economizer minimum position. That's one of the things that's part of it, you know, to bring in fresh air. A lot of them now want you to, even in the morning, to what they're calling a building flush. They want you to open up the outside air dampers and bring in outside air for, you know, 2 to 3 hours in the morning before people start occupying the building. Being able to schedule exhaust fans, you know, through our generic IO controller. Increasing, if you had a VAV system, you know, increase the discharge air temperature so the box is open more, increasing those zone air changes. This is all part of some of the ASHRAE standards. Lower demand controlled ventilation set points to act quicker when people enter the space. And then a really important part is being able to configure alarm notifications to ensure that the right people are being notified of these HVAC issues. Even getting alarms remotely from fan status, dirty filter status, those types of things. So Verasys plays really well and during this pandemic. So integration features. We talked about this whole new BACnet thing, which I just love that we were able to now pull in third-party BACnet devices. Well, you can also, with our FX controllers, being our PCVs and PCA controllers, if you have them already on a site, or maybe you have a boiler that you like using the boiler controller app that you've built already. If you've already built it in using CCT and you like this app and it works well, it works well, and you want to use that controller for your boiler, using Verasys maybe on the VAV system, you can actually not only, you have your configuration. We know we can pull it in because it's a BACnet MSTP device, but now you can actually also display the objects and the view definition. The profiles can be added to customization and mapping to the existing Verasys features. And I think which is really neat, you can do the remote commissioning and download through the VPN access. It's used just like if you would use the map with the BACnet router. So you can actually be able to get into the building remotely and download and commission the FX, PCA, and PCB type controllers. So really slick feature there too.
Okay, so this is Jacob. I'm going to take it back here for a live demo of the Verasys 4.0. So just give me 1 sec. I'm going to switch screens. Okay, should be able to see it now. So what I have here is just a simple Verasys setup. It's literally sitting on the desk right next to me. It has a variety of controllers, including the side loop, a third-party controller, and then a zoning system. So what I'd like to show first is the interaction between the Verasys Smart Building Hub and this device. So first, you'll notice that it came in automatically. It has that no profile banner. So this is kind of the default state once you start mapping in devices. It explicitly, the Smart Building Hub tells you it doesn't have a profile and then gives you a message to say, hey, some of the Verasys features won't work until you have it. In terms of inputs and outputs, just like I stated earlier, anything analog or binary inputs will appear by default here. Any analog or binary outputs will appear here, and then the parameters page is meant for the rest of the analog, binary, and multi-state value objects. So you're able to interact with any of the parameters just like you would be able to in a normal BACnet system, I guess. So you have the ability to change any of the values. So we have options to simply set the state, which is just a BACnet priority 16 right, operator override, which is priority 8, and then the ability to release any of those commands that you sent. And in addition, you have the ability to view the existing priority array, so you can see if there are any higher priority things that are keeping the system either in a certain mode. So you have that ability for any of the points that are writable in the system. So again, this is kind of the default view. In order to actually give it a profile, you go into settings and you'll see this new menu option here called profiles. So you click on it, and then any profiles that you've created previously will be in this list. If there are none, obviously it would be empty. You have options to either add a new profile or import one, or in this case, I'm going to look at the existing one that I've created. So I'll just simply click on it. And then it'll tell me name, description, which I'll fill out, what type of device this is, and then if there are any devices currently using it, of which I have none. I can also delete and then export from this menu as well. Once I click on the next button, it will populate a list of objects, including the object name, the default object name, and then the object identifier as well. So you can go through this list and be able to identify points exactly, between looking here and then looking in the technical guide for that piece of, for that control. For each of the points, you do have the capability to go into the editor and make changes. So again, you can make changes to the name if it comes through with a kind of a not as good name. You can choose what views to go on, so either outputs or homepage are my options. We have the concept of tagging, which allows us to integrate easily into other Verasys features, like the data share feature or the interlock feature. And so there's a list of predefined tags that are already part of our system and will allow it to integrate nicely. As I showed on one of the slides previous, you have the ability to assign alarm objects to any point that you'd like. You'd simply fill out low limit, high limit, what message do you want to see when it happens, and then that message will populate not only in this user interface, but also in the email notifications as well. And then you can also define differentials, so how much does it have to go back into the good region for the alarm to clear, and then any kind of alarm delay if you don't want it to happen immediately as well. And then you also have the ability to choose what priority level the alarm should happen at. And then that ties in nicely with our alarm notification feature, where every user has the option to say, what level of alarms do I want to see? So it integrates directly into that. In addition, as stated earlier, you have the ability to add trend objects to any object. And then you can also integrate in through a schedule by checking the schedule checkbox. So I do want to look at the occupancy schedule point, which I've added here. So you'll note that I have the schedule checkbox checked in this scenario. So then if I look at my schedules feature, I have the ability to go into the schedule editor, choose my data type and what schedule type I would like. And then you'll see I'll have a list of all multi-state objects that may or may not fit. It tells me what enumeration set is being used. And then I should be able to see my controller. Oh, I haven't applied the profile yet. That is why I don't see it. So let me go ahead and do that so that I can actually show what I want to show. So in order to apply the profile to the device, I'll do select profile, DOAS profile apply. You'll notice that on the home page, once I do that, the no profile goes away. On the home screen, I have the populated data as I defined. My inputs page is a little bit different, roughly the same, but my parameters page, I used to have about 50 some parameters, and I've shortened it greatly to only show the ones I want to show. Now, if I go to the schedules page, I go to my DOAS schedule, I select objects. I do now see that particular device. I've called it DOAS AHU. It's at address 6, and this is the enumeration set. So I can select it, hit save, and hit save at the bottom. And now I do have that as part of my schedule as well. Another nice thing, like I mentioned, is you have the ability to tie into other Verasys features. So one I'd like to show off here is the data share. So if I look for outside air temperature, this particular unit, I've tagged it with some of the tags here, outdoor air temperature and outdoor temperature destination. On my system already, I do have a rooftop here that does have an outdoor air temperature defined. And if you noticed earlier, I don't have an outdoor temperature on my third-party device. And so all I need to do now that I've assigned the tag is go to data share, add data share, and then select, we said outdoor air temperature. I actually want to share it from my RTU number 1, and I want to share it to my DOAS HU. And now I should be sharing a 67-degree temperature. I go here on my home page. Now it no longer says source unavailable 55, but it now has the correct reading here as well. So pretty nice feature. One of the other features that I'd like to show is the controller clone. So again, settings, clone is a new menu option. It's a very similar look and feel to the existing data share feature. So you select a source device. So I'll select VAV1, and then it does a kind of a smart filtering. So it will only allow you to select destinations of the same type. So if you'll notice, if I'd selected, let's do side loop, for example, it would say no matching devices found. But if I select VAV1, hit select all, clone, so it's reading the parameters from my source device, and then it copies them over to the two destination devices. So pretty slick there. One other thing that I'd like to show, I guess rather quickly, is the side loop application that Randy was talking about earlier. So again, this is one of our applications that has a lot of configurability to it. So by default, it kind of doesn't look super interesting, no homepage defined. It's very simple to be able to walk through and configure the system here. So I go to details, I would go to system configuration. I can define a number of loops. So I could go analog loop 1, enable, and then that will start populating more menu structures on the left-hand side. And then it's just all menu driven. There's no tool, as we said earlier. And then I can configure how do I want that analog loop to behave. Do I want it a PID? Do I want just a simple span? Do I want a PID with reset, etc.? So very simple to choose the input that drives the output. All very nicely done through the menu driven system. I think with that, I'm gonna run back to the slideshow in the interest of time here. So let me flip to that.
All right, so it's Randy again. This is just we'll go through these few slides here kind of quickly so we have some time for question and answers. But so selection process. We always have had a selection Excel-based sheet that you can download from VerasysControls.com. That's broken into separate little tabs so you can go by your application, whether it's if you're doing VAV or just single zone rooftops, whatever it might be. And then it'll output all the your devices that you've added or picked the controllers, and then you can output that into the Johnson Controls ordering system, the Navigator, to get pricing. And then we also have another way to do selection that you can use our Selection Navigator, which is a tree-based configuration, allow you to more granular type selection. It generates the wiring diagram, sequence of operations, all those things, the bill of material. And then whenever you're doing the selection through Navigator, it's easier if you filter it by the Verasys. Training collateral, everything we're talking about, all this stuff is on VerasysControls.com. But we also have 3 levels of different training that's online as part of the Johnson Controls Institute. We have a lot of how-to videos, very short 1, 2, 3 minute how-to videos on VerasysControls.com. And then we are also will be live here in October at the 4.0 release. All these new BACnet features, how to use them will also be posted on VerasysControls.com. Again, that Verasys website and portal, all product literature, user guides, drawing templates, brochures, everything is on there. Don't forget what Verasys, it makes it very simple, is because all those drawings, sequence of operations, flow drawings, and everything are already done. So Verasys installations are a lot simpler and easier to be on a system too. Here's those drawing templates, quick start guides, installation instructions, application notes. All those things are on verasyscontrols.com. Our Verasys sales support structure. Up in the top there, it says pre-sale, top left, pre-sale support. As you're the customer, you can go to the website and get some help. You can phone your distributor or the distributor or channel sales. And then once from there, if there's more technical help or need help, you can reach out to myself or Jacob for some further support. Our same way with the post-sale support. And then as far as post-sales backup, we have an 800 number. So if you get on a job site and you need support, maybe you're having some troubles with the Verasys install, you can call the 800 number and we'll give you some help.
Alrighty, thanks Randy, thanks Jacob. We have a lot of really good questions coming in, so we'll get to as many of them as we can. We will probably run out a little bit of time, so again, we'll issue a frequently asked questions document shortly after the live event and send that out along with a copy of the presentation and a recording of the presentation. So Jacob, if you want to flip to the next slide, just going to quickly remind everyone that Verasys 4.0 will officially be available and released on October 14th. But with that, we'll get into the questions, and in no particular order, I'm just going to dive in here. So Jacob, this is probably a question for you. Has Johnson Controls tested the BACnet integration on any train or carrier rooftops?
We have actually on both. So we've done it at a couple levels as well. So we were able to obtain both those and probably 20 or so other competitive control boards during the development phase. And so it gave us quite a bit of a head start to be able to, actually test against those while we're developing, kind of figure out all the different nuances of those different devices. And then as part of our field trial period, we had sites that included both of those, both carrier and train RTUs. From a Verasys perspective, they come in just like any other device. They typically have between 200 to 300 unique objects to them, which is a lot. So it was certainly a learning curve on our part to figure out what each and every one of them meant and how they work. But yes, we certainly did test those out thoroughly.
Okay, great, thank you. And can you do BACnet IP integrations with Verasys, or is it only BACnet MSTP integrations?
Yep, so for this release, we only support BACnet MSTP in. We do have a feature in Verasys called the BACnet routing, which allows us to send IP messages out in case you would like to integrate into a larger supervisory system. But BACnet MSTP in is all we support.
Great, thank you. And can you use the third-party information to control another item? So now that we're integrating with third-party devices, can you use the information coming from them to control other items?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. The main way that I would think to do that is through our interlock feature, which allows you to drive mostly binary outputs on and off due to certain conditions. The way that it would work is that you would create a profile for that third-party device. You would use the tagging feature to tag whatever inputs that you would like to drive this logic, and then they would appear in the interlock feature to allow the simple logic objects to take over. So the answer would be yes.
Great, thank you. And can you upgrade to 4.0 with the current hardware? So if you currently have Verasys hardware, can you upgrade to 4.0, or do you need to do anything else to upgrade to 4.0?
Yep, if you have current hardware, which we call the SBH 200, it's just a simple software update. So on the 14th, we'll have the SBH software available on our website. You would download it directly to your PC, and then you log into the Smart Building Hub, go to the software updates page, and then be able to update. And like Randy said, it's completely free. So if you have existing hardware, you could certainly upgrade and get these functions right away.
Great, thank you. And will the third-party integration include package equipment on the zone bus, or is it limited to the system bus devices?
Right now, the integration is mostly focused on system bus devices, although you do have some capability to tie them in on the zone bus level. It would work. It works a little bit better in the VAV scenario as there's not as much logic behind it. But the main focus, at least for this release, is tying in more on the system bus, although there are some capabilities on the zone bus as well.
Okay, thank you. And will there be firmware updates to upgrade the existing controllers to accept the new NS8000 sensors?
Yes, and those will also be posted on our website at the same time. Some controllers today ship with it without any update, but by October they all will be leaving the factory with it. And if you have existing controllers, whether it be in a stock or something like that, you could download the new firmware from our website to upgrade them.
Okay, great, thank you. And can you write to the third-party BACnet points?
Yep, I did show that a little bit in my demo. But yeah, you have the capability to write to anything that it allows you. The two options that we have today, I guess technically there's like 3 or 4. The main ones are set state, which is priority 16. If you tie it to a schedule, we actually write it at priority 15. Interlocks, I believe, are priority 12. And then operator override is priority 8. But yes, if the controller allows you to write an object, we do give you the capability to write to it.
Okay, great, thank you. And with the new updated NS8000s, are they able to control reheat in the VAV boxes for dehumidification?
There is no sequence within the ZECs to support any kind of dehumidification at this point, so I guess the answer would be no to that.
Okay, thank you. And let's see here. Sorry, just making sure I'm going in the right order here. What are the trend limitations, total points, and trend intervals, excuse me, for third-party device points?
Yep, so the trends you can do, I believe it's 200 trends per device, which is a lot. I wouldn't anticipate most people would ever need that many. And then we do, I believe it's 1,000 point samples in our trend buffers. Whatever it is, it equates out to roughly 10 days. I can't do the math backwards right now, but anything that's analog will sample at a 15-minute interval. Anything that's binary will sample on a change of value. And multi-state also change of value, so you'd always have the freshest trends.
Great, thank you. And again, we did receive quite a few questions, some really, really good ones that we just didn't have time to answer live here over the air, and we are at the top of the hour, actually just passed. So again, thank you for all your great questions. We will make sure that we get those answered and published in a frequently asked questions document shortly after the live event. And we will be sending that out via email to anyone who registered and or attended with a copy of the link to the recording and a copy of the presentation. So thank you to Jacob and to Randy, and most importantly, thanks to all of you for, again, taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Really appreciate your time. Thanks as always, and continue to stay safe out there. Have a great day.